All right, welcome back. We are going to be doing the North Africa scenario. We're going to be starting the turns. I created an Excel spreadsheet for scoring so that we can use that, because then I don't have to handwrite it and I don't have any way to show you. So we're going to try to play through at least like maybe spring and summer of 41 here and see how that goes. I made a few changes to the board while I was away, or while I was not going. I added this right here to Benghazi because the Allies will get points for that. I needed to add a fortress to Tobruk. And then what I did, because it's easier for me not to forget, is I added all the reinforcements over here, except I wanted to make one change real quick on the fly. Let's see, scenario cards. We have to lose in the fall of 41. Excuse me, some pieces. And so that I don't forget that, even though I'm going to try to check that sheet every time and not be, make a mistake. They have this little marker. There's no way, they don't have any blank markers. Some sets will make blank markers and you can relabel them or whatever, but they don't have anything like that in here. So basically I'll put that there. That'll remind me that 2 Allied units have to come off the board. We're going to lose, what is it? We lose the Australians. They have to basically go back because things are getting wacky over in the Pacific and they need to go defend the homeland or around the homeland. So anyway, we'll go with that. So without further ado, let's get right into the turn. Let's see, I got to remember where all my stuff is. So we have a abbreviated sequence of play today. So the first thing that we would do, the Axis moves first. We have voluntary elimination of units. We don't need to do that. Nobody's going to be eliminated. So movement phase, placement of airbase counters, we don't need to do that. Staging of air units, I think we're ready for that. But let's go take a look. So let's zip on over here to the theater and let's zoom in. Let's talk a little bit real quick about objectives. So victory points, that's important. We got to know what we're trying to accomplish in this theater. So for every 5 BRP spent on offensive operations round up, it's a -3 victory points per turn. So we're going to lose, to a maximum. So it's -1 for every one. So if we just activate a few guys, so basically we're going to be using resources down here, and that's going to be a negative. Seems kind of harsh, but that's the scenario rule, so we're going to go with that. Then we get a +1 for each BRP of enemy units eliminated. Isolated or voluntarily eliminated units rebuilt at double cost count for double VP. And then we're going to earn some victory points for control of cities. So these are important. So Tobruk, if the Axis control this for a turn, they're going to get +1. And each city in Egypt, so if we can cross this border right here and take Alexandria, Cairo, Suez, or Port Said, or any of that stuff, that would be a big old juicy +2 right here. I can't zoom in anymore. That's the most they'll let me zoom in, or I'd zoom in tighter. The Allies will get +1 for Benghazi, which is already under their control because they control from here back. So Benghazi is theirs. And Tobruk. So they're going to start getting victory points right away. So we want to smash through this and try to capture those as quickly as possible. If they get to Beirut or Berat or Tripoli, those are their big bonus +2. So we don't want to let them as the Axis get there. My initial opinion, and I could be wrong, but just looking at the map and stuff, it seems like this is going to be a pretty tough nut to crack for the Axis. So we're going to need some luck and some early on success. So that's what we're going to be gunning for. So let's close that. Let's go back and look at our turn of sequence. So movement phase, place of airbase counters. We don't need to do that. Staging of air units. Let's go back and look at that real quick. So if I put my air counters here, if I was going to stage them up to here and put them right on top of these guys by moving an airbase there, which my understanding of the rule is I can recycle this air base over to here, and then fly these guys there in the same turn. But we don't need to do that because even if I'm here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't get to that guy. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we did that as the allies so that we could support these with ground support, but not get shot up by the Axis Air Force. So we don't need to redeploy. Attacker announces and then resolves counter air missions, which nobody's in range. That's what we just talked about. Initial supply determination. So everyone's in supply. There's no supply penalties yet for the Axis. That comes later. We don't have any air to uninvert. Normally if you use it, you flip them upside down and they're inverted, and then you have to pay resources to uninvert them. Determine supply status of the attacker's units, so we're all good. We're just starting out, so we're not in trouble yet. Ground units moved and execution of overruns. So let's go take a look at that. So I have the maximum stacking in each of these hexes. But I think I'm going to do some moving around now that I've had a chance to think a little bit. I want to try to punch through this South African unit right here and try to get up and start cutting off this armor and make life difficult for the British. Make them get out of there. They don't have a lot there, so that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I got, 5 air units total. I'm going to need this armor to push through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out. He's going to move to there, and he's going to move to there. And then this guy is going to move right here because then he will be eligible for a breakthrough if I can win that combat. This guy doesn't need to move, and they don't need to move right now. And I haven't played this for a long time, and I think it'd be fun. One of the fun things about wargaming, like, I talked about you Grandmaster World at War players that know all the great opening moves and what to do best. Part of the fun I have with wargaming, especially solo play, because then I don't really lose or win, is that making mistakes or not understanding something and then having to learn on the fly. Kind of like, I look at it like the Axis attacked Russia in Barbarossa, and the Russians had no clue how to deal with that. They were, trying to figure things out, but the Germans, as the war drug on, started to say, the problem is the Russians are starting to learn, and they're learning how to counter our attacks and how to defend, and then even eventually counterattack. So I kind of want to use that like this. So again, this is not a how-to strategy guide for a World at War. This is just kind of covering the rules, so in case you wondered how it played, and then just having some fun and playing online. That's really the bottom line here. So I'm going to go with that. We're going to try that, and let's go back over to our sequence of play. And the next step, eliminate units still overstacked from retreat. We don't have to worry about that. Combat phase, attacker announces land-based air missions. So we need to look at this situation. So they're going to have at least 3 air factors. We do not want to counter air with Italian air, though. It's horrible. I'm going to save these 2 because I know the British will send that in to try to help here. So we are going to send 2, and they can move 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to send 2. And let's do the math here real quick before I get ahead of myself. So we talked about, I used the wrong terminology. They're called defensive multipliers. And for a clear hex, you get a +1. So that means instead of timesing this first number here on the South African unit by 1, you get to times it by 2 because you have a +1, so now you're at +2. If it was like a river or something like that, whatever gives you a +2, you'd be at a +3 now, so you get a 3 times that number, is how that works. So in case I wasn't clear earlier on that. Anyway, so they get a +1. So these guys are at 2. I am attacking with 4. So I have 2-to-1 odds. If I send 2 more, that's going to give me 6-to-2. So that's going to give me 3-to-1 odds if these guys don't have any problems. It's just going to depend on how this air battle goes, and we'll do that shortly. So there's my air mission. Okay, so let's go with that. Resolve counter air missions announced during the combat phase. We don't have any counter air missions because they weren't in range. The defender announces defensive air support. All right, so I'm not sure if this is a great strategy, but I'm going to do it anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are going to fly these in there. Defensive air support. Okay. And, oh, by the way, let's go look at this so I don't forget. Oops, it's in the rules section here. Charts and tables. BRP cost. So each ground and air factor used is a 1. So everything we do will be 1 BRP. That's what it's going to cost us to basically spend resources, our cash for our nation to fight. So basically I've spent, I'm going to spend 1 for moving that guy. And then I got 4 more here, so that's 5. 6, 7 for the air. 8, 9. I'm going to end up spending at least 10, 11, 12. You round it up. The max you can ever spend, if you spend 15 BRPs, you're on a total offensive. So before we forget, the Axis, well, I don't know where they have, I guess, attacks. So we're going to be at a -3. Because I'm going to be between 10 and 15 and you round up. So I'm doing a major offensive, so everyone's going to be moving. You don't spend anything for defensive air support, so we're good there on defensive air support. So let's go back over to the scenario rules. So defender announces defensive air support, so the British flew in there. The attacker announces land-based air interceptions of defensive air support. So, yep, we're going to do that. So we're going to fly this Italian unit in there. And we're going to fly 2 German Luftwaffe units in there. And we're going to counter-air them, hopefully. Now, so this doesn't get too confusing, which I think everyone can follow along pretty good. But let's just do this for the sake argument. We will put the counter air stuff back here so we know this is offensive ground support, and these dudes are going to be duking it out over here. And if there's anything left, the British can still fly in there and help, which would be bad for us because that would knock us back to 2-to-1. So we're going to have to do some resolve the air interactions. All right, so let's go find the chart for that. Let's see. Okay, so air combat. So we have an air nationality die roll, which we'll get to in a second. For each jet, we don't have jets. There's no combat involving cap. That would be for naval stuff. And we're not dealing with radar and research or anything like that. So basically, we're going to roll dice, and we'll have the dice roll. Plus you have your factors here, and we'll cross-reference that, and we'll see where we end up. So let's go look real quick at the scenario rules for air. This is a thing I did not look up in advance, so let me just take a second. The combat training levels, that's not used in air. I don't believe. So let's do this. So this will drag it out a little bit. Maybe we'll just get through one turn. But let's look at air and naval operations and read through how that works. So we want to look at, oh, that's air naval operations. We don't want that, sorry. We want air operations only, not air naval. So Army air units, we got all that. So apologize for not having this down. I thought I kind of reviewed everything and I forgot to look up how the air nationality thing works. So you get to do that with me live. All right, so we got our air missions. I want to find something on how to look up that. And it could be the CTO, maybe it is, but let's look it up. So air combat. So we know how to do that. That part will be easy. Let's look at the modifier list here. The relative air nationality modifiers are set out in the air nationality DMR chart. Oh, okay. Well, oh, right here. Air nationality chart is right in front of me. So Germany's a 2. Italy's a 1, Britain is a 2, but what do you do if there's a mix? So it says air nationality DRM adds the difference to its air combat dice roll, and the side with the lower air nationality DRM subtracts the difference. When a side has air units with different air nationality DRMs, the lowest air nationality, well, that's great, is used. If all the air units with the lowest air nationality DRM are eliminated, only the air nationality DRM of the remaining unit. Okay, so basically, because we have Italians flying with us, that's going to make us crummy. So the British are actually going to get a +1. And, yeah. All right, so we're both at 3, I believe. Yep, we got 3 British. So we're all going to be on this column right here, which I can't highlight because it's in a thing here in the game system. And British get a +1, and the Axis get a -1. So that's something to consider down the road. So let's roll the British first. So we roll 2d6 with a +1. I rolled a 3, so that's a 4. That's going to be a 1-1 result. So the number before the slash is the number of enemy air factors or squadrons which are eliminated. The number after the slash is the number of air factors or squadrons which are forced to abort. Exception, air units flying combat, air patrol. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so this one, we're just going to move this out of the way for a second, is going to be the eliminated one because we used that, and I believe the rule is that when you use the DRM, the lowest one, he can be eliminated because that's the main one we were using. And one of these guys has to abort, which I think we can rotate him or invert him. Okay. Now let's roll for the Axis, so a 2d6 with a -1. That's going to be a 4, which is going to be the same thing. So they are going to lose 1. And this one here, so what we need to do is we need to clone this guy twice. Okay. And then this we're going to eliminate so we don't end up with too many factors. So 1 is still there, and 1 is inverted. Okay, now let's go back and look at the rule because I believe you still just go through the motions. You can still fight. Now we'd be 2-on-2, and because the aborted guys only have to abort, or they only abort if the combat's called off. But let's read through that and make sure. So air combat simultaneous, we knew all that. We read about the slashes. Well, let's read this real quick about the losses from mixed forces and make sure that I didn't do anything wrong there. But combat effects to a force of mixed types must be distributed equally among the types involved, with any remnant being taken by the type having the most factors. Well, that might be a bummer. Let's see. Or squadrons involved unless otherwise specified. This rule applies to forces containing different nationalities. Different types of air units such as Army Air, air units of the same nationality but different air nationality DRMs. If an equal number of factors are involved, the remnant is taken from the type of the lower air nationality DRM. Exception, air combat results. Okay. Hoping they have an exception. Here's an example. Let's go read down here. U.S. and the Australia loses one Army Air squadron each. The American NAS, one American AS, and one Australian. That doesn't help. I need an example where we have an odd number. Okay. 2 American, 1 Australian, and 1 American. The American Australian are converted. Okay. Okay, well, here they give a. Okay, so let's read that one more time. So, combat effects to force of mixed types must be distributed equally among the type involved, with any remnant being taken by the type having the most factors or squadrons involved. Different types of air units, such as Army Air, Naval Air, okay, air units of the same nationality but different air nationality DRMs. If an equal number of factors are involved, the remnant is taken from the type with the lower air nationality exception. Okay, so the number of factors eliminated and aborted are totaled, then assigned as equally as possible to the various types of air units involved. Eliminated air factors are aborted first, then air factors which are forced to abort. For example, a 1-1 air combat result against a force of 3 American and 1 British eliminates 1 American and abort. Okay, so I think we're going to have to go with that. So if somebody knows a different rule there, let me know. But instead, this poor dude's going to get eliminated. So let's invert him back. And then let's Control I. So the Italian guy is still there. All right, so let's go see if we continue fighting. That's my understanding, is that once we... air combat consists of 1 or more air combat rounds, single round air combat. Air combat... So let me read through this here. So that's the... air combat dice are made... The tables, we understand that. So if uninverted and inverted air units are countered air in the same hex, well, it's inverted and uninverted. Once combat effects have been determined for each type of air unit engaged, all right. Well, so multiple rounds. Air combat consists of 1 or more air combat rounds and normally continues until one side or the other is eliminated or withdraws. Air combat against air transports arising out of... So that's single. In each round of air combat, each side rolls 2 dice. I'm pretty sure you can do multiple rounds. But we each have one that's aborted, and I think they still... get to fight. I'm not seeing it anywhere in the... Number before the slash, we know that, which are eliminated. The number after are forced to squadron or forced to abort. Excess abort results are ignored. A dice roll of less than true is treated as 2. We don't need to worry about the Army and Naval. And that's the mixed forces. So let's go up here because there's got to be something about... Okay, well, I'm going to do it that way because that's the way I remember it from when we used to play, that the abort thing is only... Oops, let me find where I'm at here. Is only enforced once all the rounds of eligible, and if you continue to fight... Okay, what I think happens is if you continue to fight now, it's 1-on-1. So it'd be a German against a British because these guys are no longer part of it, but they're not eliminated. And when the combat's done, they fly back to their base is what happens, I believe. So I'm going to do that, and I'm only going to do one turn today. Then I'm going to go back and reread that stuff and see what I missed, because I thought I remembered the air combat, but now I want to make sure I do it right, because if I'm going to teach somebody, I apologize for the big delay there. So it's going to be 1 R factor each. There's no longer a modifier. We'll roll the British first, just so we're consistent. So the British roll and get a 5, and that will abort the Axis. The Axis roll and get a 7, which will kill the British one. So that's a big deal for the Axis. So this guy gets inverted. Control I. And then basically they fly back to their bases. And those guys are used up. And these guys, we're going to use the scenario card. We're going to use that for our casualties. So we know we can... Oh no. We were fine there. I thought I forgot to bring on reinforcements, but that is not true, because we're following the sequence of play. So those were both eliminated. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put guys down here so at the end of the turn we can calculate victory points, and then we'll put them up here when we know that they've been calculated. So let's go back to the sequence of play. So resolve ground combat for each attack. So we're going to designate attacking and defending ground units. So this whole stack right here of 4 plus the air, and there is a limit. You can only have so much air, which we're fine, but you couldn't send like 15 air factors against this little square with only 4 guys attacking. So we have basically these are 6 to 2, so we're at 3 to 1 odds. So we do the combat die roll. So let's go back and let's look at charts and tables. And is there a ground combat one? Combat result, air. Okay. Seriously? Anyway, there's no combat result table there. You're kidding me, right? You've got to be kidding me. Is it on the... Alright, so let's go through this again. We got air and naval. It's not going to be there. Oh, there's the combat result table. It's combat result. I saw the air. Okay. So we basically have an odds column. We're going to roll the dice. So we're on the 3 to 1 column right here. Okay. And we roll 1 die. And there's no modifier. The only modifier is for additional rounds of combat, which these guys have a CTL of 1, so they're only allowed to do 1 round of combat. Okay? So let's roll a d6. Oh, it's a 1. At 3 to 1 is an EX, which is an exchange. The side with the fewer combat factors, taking into account the defender's defensive multiplier, loses the entire force. The larger side removes at least an equal number of factors, taking into account the defender's DM, which is the defensive multiplier. The strength of defensive air support, which they don't have any, is unaffected by the DM. Okay, so this guy is worth 2, right? So that means I have to lose 2, and I'm going to lose an infantry unit, which means that I win that battle. Now this guy has to invert, and let's see, I might be getting ahead of myself, so let's go read the sequence of play and slow our roll here a little bit. So resolve ground combat losses, resolve any additional rounds of ground combat we can't do, advance after the combat. So now I want to advance, boom, and we can delete that, and we're going to clone that right away so I don't forget. And let's go back and place a bridgehead and breakthrough counters. Now this is where we get the breakthrough, because anytime you have an armor unit that successfully attacks, you create a breakthrough. And they don't have any short things here, so let's go up. Which, by the way, that's not a complaint. This is a very nice looking module, by the way, whoever did it. Super appreciate it. No nations. So breakthrough. So we create a breakthrough hex there. And on a breakthrough hex, any armor that was adjacent to attackers that break through can now move onto that hex. So this armor basically swings in here, and it's going to be able to make a move of up to 2 hexes and, you know, try to cause some problems. But it does have to follow the rules of zone of control, not during the breakthrough part, but afterwards. So let's go look over here, place bridgeheads and breakthrough counters. Exploitation is what we're talking about right here. So exploiting armor units placed on breakthrough hexes, exploitation movement and overruns. So now we can do that movement. Then you could do more ground support, defensive air support, stuff like that if you're going to do more combat. The nice thing about the North Africa scenario is there's not a ton of stuff to do, so you're kind of onesie everything for the most part, which is good because it's a great learning scenario. And obviously, even I haven't played it for a long time, but obviously even reading through the rules and having played in the past, it's a good scenario to refresh on because I didn't remember some stuff. So we're not going to have any exploitation combat, but what we are going to do is we're going to move here, and you can only move 2 hexes away from the breakthrough hex. Okay, that's how a breakthrough works. And what we want to do is we want to cut this dude off, which we already have because of the zone of control, right? So we've already cut him off there, but this guy is going to be in supply for a while, right? So he's going to move up to here, and it costs extra, but he's fine because he has 6 movement points. He has a continuous chain of 2. Now, if let's say I had 2 armor units right here, and I had 2 Axis armor units like this, I could make a chain as long as you always stay within 2. So I'm going to show you real quick just how that works. Let's say this is an armor unit, okay? For all intents and purposes, we'll treat this air as an armor unit. So let's say they both exploit to there, right? And then this armor unit goes 1, 2. This armor unit can go, to here. You pay the additional movement, then regular movement, and you can actually create a chain out 2 hexes away as long as you have the movement. So you can really start to create, like when we play the Barbarossa scenario, you'll see where we can really create some chains that cut off the allies, right, or the Russians as the Axis try to encircle them. All right, so let's put that air unit back over there, and I could put him there now that I've moved him out there because his zone of control causes a problem there. Now he can move in there. And now I need to look up the zone of control rules because what I'm wondering is can he get to Benghazi? Because we don't want him to get to Benghazi. We want to be able to get to Benghazi next turn and control that. But this is kind of nice because this guy right here controls all 6 of these hexes. So I'm going to ask your indulgence as I look up movement rules for zone of control. So let's look at ground operations. Yeah, let's look at movement. I want to say it's a +2. Yep. So zone of control. The European Union must expend 2 additional movement factors to leave a hex in the zone of control of armor units. There's an exception when you're playing against the Russians in Surprise. There's also an exception in the Pacific Theater. I'm not sure if there was an exception on exploitation, but even if there wasn't, so the moving up here is free, so it'd be 4, or, well, I gotta find that out because it would be 3 to move there, and then another 6 to move there. So I'll look that up next time for play. It won't matter with this one. And what I want to figure out is, okay, now if this guy moves, there's armor here, so that would cost 3, and then he only has a 5. He's not as speedy as these Axis ones. So if he moves here for 3, then he can't move here for 3 more because he's in a zone of control. And that doesn't allow him. So I'm going to do that because that gives me a little more control of this area. And they can't get to Benghazi, which means I can get to Benghazi next turn. So I like that. I think I like that. 1, 2, I don't know how, I don't remember when these guys uninvert, but I might need some help with air. So we're going to go with that. We're going to see if that's a really bad idea or not. But let's go with that. And so let's go back over to the scenario. So we're not doing any more ground attacks. Then you would resolve attrition combat, which we're not doing. So we can skip all the attrition combat stuff. Basically, attrition combat is you add up all your factors that are touching enemy factors on the same front. There's a chart. You roll on that chart. It'll tell you how many units they have to remove and how many hexes you get to take. So it's kind of like slogging it out on the whole front, but it doesn't cost resources like offensives do. And so sometimes what you're doing is maybe doing attrition on one front when you're playing with the whole map, and you're doing offensives on the other area, spending your resources there. So that's how that works. So then we go to post-combat phase adjustment. Determine supply for previously unsupplied units. Well, we didn't have any, so we're good. Eliminate unsupplied ground units, and we're good there. Now, the thing about exploiting, okay, is, and I probably should do this just so we know that he is in supply. And I can eliminate this one now because he's in supply. But actually he's kind of cut off for now. Oh, this guy has to fly back. And we need to mark some control. So let's do that. But the thing is, as a breakthrough unit for the next round, he is in supply. He's not cut off because obviously he would have problems, getting through there. So he's good. So then we do unit construction phase. So construction of units. Let's go back and look at the rules, but my understanding is with this is we automatically just construct everything that's on the reinforcement list. Where we'll be restricted is what we can redeploy. So unit construction, both sides may construct ground and air units at no BRP cost, subject to the following. German and Italian units are placed in Messina. Okay, so we'll go over here. Actually, this is where it works to zoom out a little bit. And we are going to get a 2-6 armor unit. Let's move him over here. And he starts out in Messina. We want to mark him as not moved. Okay. Let's close that so we get a good look at the theater. So there's some armor that's really would be nice to have had last turn. When the British do it, the South African units and British are placed in the South African box. Australian Indian units are placed in the India box. Australian, Indian, South African units may be redeployed to Suez or Basra in the turn of their construction. British units may not be redeployed to Suez or Basra until the turn following. Okay, so there's a little delay, like, they're basically being, shipped down there, I suppose, maybe. Okay, so that's construction. So we do redeployment. So tactical redeployment. When you redeploy, my understanding, and again, I'm going to probably go through and read some rules. In fact, I might only just do the German turn here because I'd really like to polish up on these rules and do a cleaner job for you guys. I thought I had them down. I guess my memory isn't serving me as good as I thought it was. But so the redeployment phase, you cannot redeploy next to enemy units or leave next to enemy units because basically you're not in combat mode. You're just trying to get stuff closer. So like this guy here, this little 1-3, I could redeploy him down to here, but not here because of this British armor. Okay, these guys will get to use naval redeployment to come down to here, and then I can use strategic redeployment to move them to another city with red, but I don't think we have any. So basically, that's why Tobruk will be important, because I could naval redeploy to Tobruk if I could take it from Messina. Otherwise, basically, I'm going to have to go to here and then next turn do some stuff. But let's see the order. I maybe get to do a tactical redeployment at the end, and then basically that's your movement speed. So let's put all those guys back. So let's go. Let's do a tactical redeployments. I don't know if there's anything I want to do for tactical. I mean, I could move off of here, I suppose. Let's go ahead and move him there for tactical redeployment. And that's it, because everybody else is touching this British unit, and he's already exploited. I'm not even sure I can redeploy him, but I wouldn't want to because I like where he's at. So then we go back to the rule, and it's going to be naval redeployment. The rules for naval redeployment, they have some special rules here. Axis redeployment. Each turn the Axis may redeploy. Oh, you know what? Okay, this is where this is where all these guys can be rebuilt too. My bad. So we have a few choices to maybe make. Let's do the scenario card. So we're going to have to figure out some victory points for the British real quick. So we get +1 for each BRP of enemy units eliminated. So this would be 2 for the infantry, and I think the air is 3. There should be a chart for that. BRP cost, where are you? Right there. Oh, that's right, air is only 1 as well. So that's 3 BRP. Oops, and I closed my little Excel spreadsheet. Let's open that up real quick. I accidentally closed it. Oop, I don't want that. That's work. Alright, so the Allies, for units, they're going to get 3 victory points there. And we might as well do the British, or the Germans real quick. So they eliminated 3, right? So we're going to put these up here so we know they've been used. These actually get to come out here. Okay, because you get to build them for free in this scenario. They were eliminated, so they're eligible to be rebuilt. And let's go back over here and give the Germans their 3 points. So that's basically a break even so far. Let's close that up and let's go back to the rules. Oops, not the rules. We want the scenario. So each turn the Axis may redeploy, naval redeploy, up to 4 ground air factors from Messina to Tripoli, or if its Axis controlled Tobruk. Air can also tactically redeploy directly from Messina to a city or base in Libya. So let's go back to that tactical redeploy. Tactical redeploy, you can go up to, air units can go up to 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not sure if they can use the Italian one, but they could fly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to here. So they're going to go there. That leaves us the 4 factors. Remember, we can naval redeploy 4 factors to Tripoli. So we're going to bring this infantry and this armor unit down to Tripoli here, so that they are now in the theater and ready to help out. And let's jump back over here. That was our naval strategic redeployment. Now that's when you can go from an objective to an objective, which those are red. And so if I had guys here, and let's say I controlled Alexandria and there was nobody next to it, I could actually strategic redeploy up to 2 units from and to any objective. All right, so it's basically like, without having a bunch of rail lines on here, it's saying there's a connection there, right? So there'd be like the coastal road, and they'd redeploy there, because each turn on here is, 3 months. But that's not likely going to happen in this situation, so we go back over to the rules, and now we can tactical redeploy units which naval redeployed and or strategically redeployed. So if you did it up here, I don't think you can do it again. But we didn't, so I can't tactically redeploy this 1-3 over here, right? Because I already did that. But these 2 dudes, now they can move up to their movement factor, but they cannot end next to an enemy unit. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I had enough to get here, I couldn't move into here because you can't redeploy next to an enemy. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here comes the 21st DAC, and then we got this 10th Infantry Division, or I'm not sure if they're divisions or not, and he's going to go 1, 2, and we might as well just, go there for all intents and purposes, right? So he's going to tactically redeploy to there. Okay? Let's go back to the rules. Voluntary elimination of units, not going to do that. Uninvert all air units. Air units which redeployed remain inverted. So we didn't deploy any of our airs, so they're going to get to invert, which is good, right? Because we want them ready to help us next turn if need be. Put all these back down so things look a little nicer. And let's go back to that and remove bridgehead counters. We don't have any bridgehead counters to remove. And I believe that would be the end for the Axis. So after our first turn, we punched through the South Africans down here and were able to exploit and try cutting off the 31st, I'm guessing, independent armor. And we have some reinforcements on the way. And now the British are going to have to try to figure out what they want to do. I think what I'd like to do before I do the British turn, because I need to read more about zone of control and out of supply, is I want to read up on that again a little bit. And then kind of go through in my mind maybe some strategy for the British. Now the British this turn are going to be getting a decent little pile of stuff. They're going to get some Australians and some Indians coming to help. So that's going to certainly help. And then also they're going to get back the air that they lost in that situation. So stuff will start flowing in from Egypt and try to keep Tobruk from falling. Oh, we better look at victory points for cities. I don't think we're going to get any because only Benghazi. Let's see. Let's go look at this to be sure. Only Tobruk is a victory point for us, and cities in Egypt. So we can do a 0 for this. So for the turn we have a 0, and we have a cumulative 0. So not the greatest. Now the British are going to have to spend on their turn. They're going to be spending some money to move stuff, which is going to cost VPs. And they are still going to get some cities, so they're going to actually get a little jump on the VP. So I'm guessing there should be a little bit of a swing as the Axis seems to have a good advantage with armor and stuff. But we'll see how it goes. I'll see how the recording went, see if volume levels and everything are good. And I will get back to the second half of the turn. I might even try to do that again this week instead of waiting until Monday. The goal is 1 video a week. As I get faster, I'll do more. But anyway, appreciate you hanging out with me. Appreciate you checking out. If you got any comments, please put them. Please like and subscribe if you have not, if you like it. And if there's any rules or anything that you think maybe I wasn't doing right, if you're a regular player or look something up and see what I'm doing wrong, let me know and we'll correct it on the fly. So thanks for watching. Have a good day.